Let's get right into it. Today we're diving into an explainer of Part 3 from a really fantastic 8-part tutorial series called IPv6 Troubleshooting for System Administrators and Technical Support. This was put together by Virtualization Options LLC, which is a Colorado-based technology research, education, and advisory organization. Now, this material is specifically designed for you, system administrators and end-user tech support folks who already know your way around IPv4 troubleshooting, but who are now tasked with supporting your organization's migration to IPv6. Today, we are keeping our focus strictly on the critical concepts covered in Chapter 3 of this source material, so let's get started.
Here's a quick look at our agenda for today, organized to help replace those legacy troubleshooting habits. We've got 1. Breaking IPv4 muscle memory. 2. The dual-stack reality. 3. Diagnosing silent network failures. 4. Dealing with VPNs and tunnels. 5. ICMPv6 is not optional. And finally, 6. The IPv6 troubleshooting toolkit.
All right, Section 1, Breaking IPv4 Muscle Memory, the Paradigm Shift.
Okay, we actually have to start by fundamentally unlearning your IPv4 assumptions. In IPv4, we rely on broadcasts all the time, right? Throwing a ping to 255.255.255.255 is basically second nature. But in IPv6, broadcast is dead. Literally, it's gone. Multicast replaces it entirely. And even more of a game changer is that NAT, network address translation, is largely absent. Since every device is potentially globally routable in IPv6, your entire firewall design and your core security assumptions absolutely have to change.
Take a look at the interface differences on this slide, because this is wild when you first see it. On the left, an IPv4 interface just has a single address. But look at the IPv6 interface on the right. It normally has multiple simultaneous addresses. You're going to see a link local address, a global unicast address, and temporary privacy addresses, all just hanging out, coexisting on a single interface. If you go into troubleshooting thinking there should only be one IP, you are for sure going to be chasing your own tail.
Moving right along to Section 2, the dual-stack reality, the hidden traps.
Running IPv4 and IPv6 side by side introduces some completely invisible dangers. Because the reality is, most production networks today are running both stacks at the same time. In a dual-stack setup, you might actually think a connection is working perfectly fine when it's silently failing on one stack. This is due to a mechanism called happy eyeballs. Basically, modern browsers prefer IPv6, but they race it against IPv4 after a tiny 250 millisecond delay. So, if your IPv6 path is broken for some reason, the connection silently fails over to IPv4 rather than just dropping entirely. The result? Your users don't see an error page at all. Instead, they just get hit with a hidden 250 millisecond latency penalty on literally every single connection. They're just going to complain that the network feels slow.
Which leads us to Section 3, Diagnosing Silent Network Failures, DAD and Routing Drops.
So how exactly do we hunt down these silent network gremlins? Well, first up is duplicate address detection, or DAD for short. Here's how the failure flow happens. Step 1, DAD is initiated when a host sends a neighbor solicitation. Step 2, a conflict is detected when another host on the network responds. And Step 3, the interface just silently marks the address as DAD failed and completely drops global connectivity. Why does this happen? Usually it's because a MAC address got cloned on a virtual machine, or maybe a rogue device responds during the sequence. If you ever see an address flagged as DAD failed, this 3-step silent drop is exactly what hit you.
Next up, default route loss. Look, in IPv4, we had DHCP leases. We understood them. But IPv6 relies entirely on periodic router advertisements, or RAs, to maintain a default gateway. There is zero explicit gateway renewal. So if those RAs are getting blocked by some overzealous security policy you deployed, your network is going to drop silently. Also, a quick pro tip. Keep an eye out for an RA lifetime of 0. That explicitly tells clients, hey, stop using this as a gateway.
Okay, now for a major troubleshooting mystery that I guarantee many of you have banged your head against. Why do small pings succeed perfectly, but large file transfers just fail entirely? It is incredibly common to see an SSH session hang or a file copy just totally stall out even when your basic pings are working flawlessly.
The culprit here is a path MTU discovery failure, and here is exactly how that black hole is created. Step 1. The source sends a large IPv6 packet. Step 2. The router hits an MTU limit on the next link because the packet's just too big. Step 3. The router does its job. It generates an ICMPv6 packet too big message to send back to the source, essentially telling it to resize. But step 4, and here's the absolute killer, your firewall blocks that ICMPv6 packet. The source never gets the memo that it needs to send smaller packets, so the large transfer just stalls forever.
Thankfully, the actionable solution here is pretty straightforward. Your primary fix is to explicitly permit ICMPv6 Type 2 inbound on every single firewall in the path. Now, if you can't touch the firewalls, your alternative fix is to configure TCP MSS clamping on the router. That helps bypass the black hole entirely. Oh, and one more thing. Never, ever configure your IPv6 minimum MTU lower than 1280 bytes. Just don't do it.
All right, Section 4. Dealing with VPNs and tunnels. Navigating transition tech.
Tunneling IPv6 over legacy networks introduces some very specific failure modes, mostly because transition tech can be incredibly fragile. For example, VPNs frequently cause split tunnel leaks. This is where the VPN secures all of the IPv4 traffic, but just completely bypasses IPv6, which exposes the user's real IP outside the corporate tunnel. Or take DNS64 and NAT64 translation. These fail entirely if an application has hard-coded IP4 addresses instead of properly relying on DNS. To fix those VPN leaks, you need to proactively push a default route. That's a ::/0 route, or honestly, just entirely disable IPv6 on the client side if your VPN tunnel simply cannot support it.
This brings us to Section 5. ICMPv6 is not optional, the core rule.
Listen, if you only take one thing away from this entire explainer, it needs to be this unbreakable rule. Never block ICMPv6 entirely. In the old days, security admins absolutely loved to just drop all ICMP traffic to, quote-unquote, hide from pings on the internet. But treating ICMPv6 like IPv4 ICMP is a fatal error. Blocking ICMPv6 completely breaks path MTU discovery, it breaks neighbor discovery, and it breaks multicast membership. It is quite literally fundamental to IPv6 operation. Go ahead and take a screenshot of this matrix to keep as a permanent reference, because these specific ICMPv6 types must be explicitly permitted on every firewall in your path. We've got Type 1 for error signaling, Type 2 for packet too big, which, as we learned, fixes those annoying file transfer stalls. Type 3 for time exceeded, and types 133 through 137, which handle router and neighbor solicitations. Without these permitted, your devices literally cannot find their routers or their neighbors.
Finally, let's wrap up with Section 6, the IPv6 Troubleshooting Toolkit, Actionable Solutions.
Let's take all these concepts and put them into a practical diagnostic toolkit you can use right away. First, you have to be vigilant about rogue RAs. Since any container or VM can accidentally broadcast rogue router advertisements and completely hijack your traffic, you have to hunt them down. You can trace them with a specific Wireshark filter. Just type ICMPv6.type equals 134. Or, even better, proactively stop them network-wide by aggressively enforcing RA guard on your switch access ports. To sum up your new daily workflow, please don't rely on a web browser to test your connectivity. Test the protocols independently using curl-6 versus curl-4. Master your neighbor discovery protocol tools instead of constantly looking for ARP. Always expect multiple addresses on an interface. Definitely document and track your delegated prefixes in IPAM to avoid silent breakage when your ISP decides to change things up. And finally, go ahead and drop atomic fragments at the firewall to prevent security bypasses.
As we wrap up this explainer on Chapter 3, I want you to think about your own infrastructure for a second. With this massive shift from broadcast to multicast and the absolute necessity of ICMPv6, you really have to ask yourself, are your existing legacy security policies the very things quietly destroying your new network's performance? Take the info from these slides, go check those firewalls, and unbreak your network. Thanks for joining me today, and keep learning.